Hello one and all, Jasper here, and fuck this episode. I'm fully able to admit that objectively speaking, this is not the worst episode in the series, not by a long shot. Episode 3 still holds that title. But to me personally, in a subjective manner, it is the worst episode because it shows me the true incompetence of these writers and how they are so high off their own farts that they honestly think their decisions are actual improvements to the story. Fuck them. HBO, George, if you're listening, I don't know if this is possible, but you need to drain the sewer and find someone, anyone, to take over. Okay, maybe not anyone, but almost anyone. Either way, I don't have the energy for this shit anymore, so let's just get this over with. The first change we get is Sir Stefan being chosen to try and ride a dragon, given some distant ancestor being a Targaryen. We even got a name, Ariana. Sounds very Dornish, but either way, she does not exist, and I am not personally aware of any Targaryens wedding into the Darklands at any point in history before or after the dance. In the books, it seems he volunteered on his own volition despite no Targaryen ancestry. We have to skip quite a bit ahead now to the Vale, and do not mistake my skipping is in any way me saying that the events in the show happened in the books, only that I have already touched on these topics before and do not want to repeat myself. Anyway, in the Vale we see Rhaena Targaryen exploring the Vale when she comes across the smoldering remains of some sheep. Clearly a dragon, and this was done by Sheepstealer. And it is this moment that pisses me off incredibly. Let me start by saying this pretty much confirms that Nettle has been cut from the show. As much as I would love to dive into the idiotic choice of that, I feel a full video would be more appropriate, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. All I have to say here, though, is that she was cut, and it is done. But there are a few more things that I can comment on. You see, Sheepstealer, in the books, is one of the wild dragons that we know of, the other two being Cannibal and Grey Ghost. All of these dragons, however, were on Dragonstone and lived there. George has actually recently made a post in his Not a Blog blog, talking about how dragons are not nomadic and are very territorial. While they are capable of flying hundreds of miles, they do not unless their rider requires it of them. It's the same way how I could drive to Mexico to get some food, but why would I when I have a Mexican restaurant on every corner where I live? It's why all three wild dragons were on Dragonstone. To be fair though, if a dragon was to want to change locations from Dragonstone, maybe there were too many dragons and competition for food became too rough, then the Vale would probably be the most likely place for Sheepstealer to set up his own lair. Though, the Targaryens allowing this is unlikely, as this would risk dragon eggs falling into the hands of the nobility of the Vale, so they would either keep Sheepstealer in Dragonstone by feeding them, or kill Sheepstealer. Hey, let's check on Adam and Alan for a bit, as it's finally confirmed to us, the audience, that they are sons of Corlys Velaryon. In the books, their mother claims that their father was Laenor Velaryon, but given Laenor's preferred bedmate being that of the male variety, many doubted this, Mushroom himself stating that he thinks that they are actually Corlys, and were kept secret due to the fear of how Rhaenys might react to hearing her husband being unfaithful. In the shows, the actors portraying Adam and Alan are 26 and 31, while in the books they are much younger, in their late teens. And while I don't know how old Laenor's actor, John Macmillan, is, I would guess around the same age. Maybe a bit older, though he does look quite a bit younger than Adam. But not old enough either way to where he could be considered the father. No doubt this was done to possibly remove the aspect of him being unfaithful to Rhaenys, and it is possible he had these bastards before they were wed. Either way, backtracking a bit to episode 4, I skipped this moment because I didn't want to spoil anything, but Rhaenys pretty much knows that they are Corlys' kids and seems to be pretty okay with it, which is interesting. We get an update on a plan that was being enacted on in the previous episode, as Rhaenyra had sent food to King's Landing apparently, and this act results in the small folk rioting in King's Landing and almost harming Alicent and Helaena. This never happened because, as mentioned before, King's Landing still had food. Also, the tactical incompetence of sending food to those who are trying to starve out is ridiculous, so let me go over all the reasons why this wouldn't work. First off, there is almost no way the first ones to come across these boats would not hoard as much of it as you possibly could for themselves and their family, so many people might not even hear of it, let alone actually get any food themselves. Luckily, it would be unlikely for any small folk to see this, as remember, they are all being kept inside King's Landing by Aemon's decree, so more likely some green soldiers would have come across it, then they could just rip off the banners and give it to the small folk, saying that they're the ones now providing it, completely reversing the main goal of what Rhaenyra wants. Thirdly, I am very curious how Rhaenyra was able to find so much food. Dragonstone is not exactly a fertile place, and the amount of time it would take to get food from places like the Riverlands and Vale would be far longer than what the show presents. Finally, let's say best case scenario, that the food does make it throughout the small folk for them to all eat. Congratulations, you just decreased the odds of the small folk having any sort of rebellion or riot. People do not riot when all their needs are being met. The best way to drive the small folk into rioting is to keep starving them. The people flipping on a dime so quickly to such an extent that they now throw food at Alicent is crazy and would make it less likely for tension to boil over. The only way you could justify this action is if Rhaenyra was about to enact a plan to attack King's Landing and take it for herself, wanting to try and have the people support her during the attack. But obviously, no plan is really being put in place at this moment, or especially when she sends the food. And finally, for this episode, we have Adam, minding his own business until suddenly Seasmoke shows up and randomly decides to bond with Adam. While Adam is the one who bonds with Seasmoke, it did not happen in such a manner. Jay sent out word for people to try to bond with the dragons, and Adam, along with his brother Alan, both made attempts to bond with them in Dragonstone, and Adam was able to do it with Seasmoke. But however, in the continuity of the show, bonding with Seasmoke should be impossible. Laenor Velaryon is still alive, and no bonding has ever taken place where the previous dragon rider is still alive. And yes, I do think that Laenor is alive and didn't die off screen, because then what would be the fucking point in sparing him in the first season? But who honestly knows? These writers have proven time and time again that I cannot trust them to do anything. Anyway, be safe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.